This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
This is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the T. Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
And yes, it is Joe Martek, and yes, this is the T. Martek Hour. And we have three of the original, actually, there were only three. So, Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, Greg Fasula, attorney, and Joe Martek, financial advisor, are all here. It's not too often that all three of us show up at the same time.
The original Three Musketeers.
Three Mouseketeers.
Most people don't even know what that is, Joe.
Well, Musketeers or Mouseketeers, either one, right? Both have been. Yeah, what was the Three Musketeers? Didn't we have to read that in grade school, high school, or something?
Oh, I've read that book several times.
Several times. Why?
Yeah.
You keep forgetting it?
I like the plot.
There you go.
You read The Three Musketeers in college.
You read it in college?
No, you did.
I didn't go to college.
He just saw it on the movie, and then
Oh!
that was as close as he got.
You read the subtitles.
I read the subtitles. Hey,
Yeah.
listen, when I have to do book reports, I just read the jacket, and make up the rest of it.
Cliff
right?
notes, and that's all you do.
340-1590, 340-1590. Call us. Back in 2004, Dan and I got together one day because of a buddy of ours introduced us and said, let's do radio shows. And Dan says, hey, sounds good to me. Who else are we going to get? And I said, well, I know this attorney, Greg Fasula. He's really not a bad guy, even though he's a liberal politician.
He's a moderate.
Moderate. Oh, yeah, moderate, right. Anyway, and he said, okay, let's talk to him. So I talked to Greg. I said, Greg, we want to do the radio show. And he goes, why? And I said, well, Greg, we can answer questions for people. They can call in because each one of us has a different area of expertise. And he says, do I have to? And I said, come on, Greg, you'll have a good time doing this. He said, you really think so? And
Yeah,
I
I
said,
figured, okay, I'll placate Joe here. I'll do it for a couple months.
Yeah.
Couple months and we'll be done.
Exactly. And that's exactly his last question was, how long do you think we'll have to do this?
It's been a while.
Yeah, 16 years later. Greg, you still don't have any gray hair, though.
No, I don't.
But any minute, they should start popping out.
Nice dye, though.
you
Nice
know.
dye job.
They will eventually.
Nice dye job. Right? So, and it's been extremely gratifying. We've been able to help, I don't know, thousands of people over the years, answer questions for people. And then in about 2008 or 9, and I don't remember exactly when, we added Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, hardest working realtor, maybe the hardest working person alive, and Mike Paulus, mortgage broker. And the reason for that back then was there were some rumors going on by the media that there was no mortgage money available, and that was never true. Always. In fact, we learned at that time that there was a mortgage that was no money down and is still there with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which Dan and I never have been able to figure
I didn't.
out.
But you know, Joe, here's what I think. At that time, just prior to that, you just had to fog a mirror to get a mortgage.
Correct.
That's how I did it.
All right, you
Yeah,
fogged
that's
that
how you
mirror.
did it, right?
So when you had to actually show that you could afford it, people said, well, there's no mortgage money.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. And
Hey,
today it's like that again.
Got to go back to the old rules. The old rule was you got to show that you can actually make the payment. And that was Fannie Mae's rule, always has been ability to pay. Just that simple. Credit was not critical, even though it is important. It was ability to pay.
Well, the credit score sort of gives you an indication of what interest rates you'll get.
Right.
The better your credit score is, in theory, the better rate you should get.
Of course.
And then they look at your debt to income ratio, which says, hey, you owe everybody in town, you can't afford to take this note on.
That's exactly. The other side of the coin is it isn't just credit, because let's say you had a hospital bill for $3 million and your insurance didn't cover it. You might end up with this monster bill for the rest of your life. Well, very often you can settle with a hospital or a medical bill on a monthly payment basis, and even though your credit score might be adversely affected, you can still qualify for a mortgage. So one of the things that happens with Mike, which, and to me, this is the only thing that makes sense when it comes to getting a mortgage. You call somebody like Mike on the phone. He's on the phone with you for 15 minutes. He runs a credit check, talks to you about your job, your income ratios, etc. And in 15 minutes, he lets you know what you can or cannot get.
Well, Joe, not only that, he will analyze your credit history, and he'll say to you, these 3 things, if you can resolve them, will boost your credit score and your ability to get a lower interest rate. And I would like to know that before I went out and looked for a home.
Well, that's exactly right, because he can raise your credit score 30 to 40 points with just a little bit of manipulation on certain debts. Because back again, everything is based on, like if you have a $10,000 credit limit on a credit card and it's up to $9,990, your credit score gets hurt.
You bet.
But if it's down to $7,000, you're looking a lot better. That could raise your credit score considerably. And if it's down to nothing or you pay it off every month, Mike will counsel you and walk you through that process just to make sure you get the best deal humanly possible. 340-1590, 340-1590. Then about 5 years ago, you're not an Ashkenazi though, are you? No.
I'm a Levite.
Levite?
A Levite.
I met Alan Love when we do our Christian radio shows, because he's a messy Jew down on the Messianic Jew. I keep getting the two confused. Alan, you're not smiling today.
I'm just waiting, Joe.
So weren't the Levites the ones that had no property and the other tribes of Israel sort of gave to them?
The Levites were really the top.
They were the top?
They were the top Jews?
Yeah, they were the attorneys, the judges.
They owned a furniture store, right?
They owned the furniture
the bankers?
Yeah, which, in Minneapolis, Los Angeles have been looted recently, but I don't think the Levites were involved in that.
Anyway, Alan Love is a retired prosecuting attorney.
Levites matter.
From Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And we started doing these shows, and he's been a special guest member now for about 5 years and contributes information from a legal standpoint on occasion. He also, in his former life, was a securities dealer, principal, a stockbroker. So he's got a pretty rounded piece of experience
he's got good
underneath
credentials.
that. Yeah. And when he found out I was 2% Ashkenazi, he said, these were the special ones. We were like the monks.
Don't they make like overalls and coveralls?
Yeah, we never had
Isn't
jobs.
That what Ashkenazi is?
We just looked cool, We had the curls and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
But we didn't have to work. We had people supporting us. I kind of like that part of me.
Is that where they get like Oshkosh Bagosh clothes?
No, that's Wisconsin. I hate to tell you.
Wisconsin. I know I heard something that sounded like that.
I know that. Yeah. When I first heard I was Ashkenazi, my daughter says, "What, Dad, is that an Indian tribe?" And I says, "You're really close, because the Jews were all called tribes back then."
Yes.
And in fact, to this day, when you meet a fellow Jew and say, "You're a landsman, what tribe are you from?" Right? I mean, it's a part of history. Yeah.
It's in the Bible, the tribe.
Yeah. 340-1590, 340-1590. So let's don't talk politics, Dan.
Oh, why not?
What do you think about Kamala?
Well,
Well,
I know that Greg is very anxious to discuss it, so I'm gonna let Greg say what he thinks about Kamala, because I think that he is in a better position to know more about her than I am.
and
Great pick. She's going to be hard to attack. She's a moderate, slightly left of center like Joe Biden, so the Republicans can't call her a radical left. She has a police background, district attorney general, so they can't attack her on that front.
well, they can, but that doesn't mean she's justified. Part of her prosecuting history, and you probably know more about it than I do. She was a pretty tough prosecutor, I understand.
Yeah.
Not
Very tough.
So
Well-
do you think that's going to sit well with some of the real ultra Bernie supporters?
No, it
You
won't.
think they're going to
Well-
stay home and not vote for her? Maybe.
I don't think so. You know, I'm sure, you know, the left they're going to have a place somewhere in that administration, but just not at vice president.
Well, as long as they keep getting rid of police in San Francisco and Seattle and Portland, and I guess the chief of police in Seattle
She
just quit.
resigned.
Yeah.
She resigned.
And you notice the stock market's pretty happy too.
Well, you know what happens? People ask me this question, Greg, about why is the stock market going up? Well, this is Joe Martek's opinion. This has got nothing to do with reality often, but the market does trade 6 months to a year in advance. It doesn't trade based on today. It trades on what it expects to happen.
And what it hears.
Now, 6
So
months.
they're going to like President Kamala.
Well, here comes the
I
64,000.
think they're happy, you know, that it's not
Do
someone
you think
far
that
left.
Willie Brown's going to get involved with this?
Oh! I thought we'd get through this hour without Willie's
Is
involvement.
he still living?
Oh, he's pulling out all his old notes.
Oh my God! Yeah, well, that's boy.
Would you,
Don't
Greg,
want to
would
go
you
there.
like to speak about Willie
See,
Brown?
I love Willie. I've known Willie for centuries. So
Because
it's
most
like,
of our listeners may not even know who he
Who
is.
is Willie Brown?
the former mayor. He's in the state assembly for 9 million years out there.
Mayor of what?
San,
wasn't he?
San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco.
Yeah.
Kamala's
yeah.
hometown.
Kamala's hometown.
Oh yeah.
Was
and,
there any relationship with them? I mean, were they buddies?
What's
Joe-
your next question?
So I guess
Joe,
did they fool around for a while, you're saying? You're mumbling.
No comment.
So, Joe,
comment.
I brought some actual statistics, not
Uh-oh.
fake
Yeah,
news.
good.
There we go.
Good
Not
stuff,
fake
Greg.
news,
Go get
actual
'em.
statistics.
No,
Go
you-
get him, Greg.
Okay, go ahead. And
Okay, so we're talking about
He's been waiting for this.
talking
day.
about-
I know hey,
talking about stock market,
you notice
right?
he never shows up when Trump's looking good. He only shows up after we get something happen good in a with
Well,
the
if that would
Democrats.
be the case, I'd never be
He'd
here.
never show up.
Anyway,
Talking about actual stock market statistics.
right?
The last 6 presidents,
Right.
right? So you hear Trump saying, "Oh gosh, if Biden wins, you know, your 401s are going to tank and the stock market is going to do horrible and all this." So looking at the last 6 presidents, who do you think has the best performance rate?
Well,
Stock market.
But you also have to understand what happens. We have to put things in perspective.
You do.
If somebody
You
comes
do.
in at the bottom of the market
Mhm.
and they do a decent job, they got no place to go but up.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat.
Well,
First is Bill Clinton,
Right.
16.7.
No doubt. Yeah.
Second, Barack Obama, 16.5.
right.
Third is H.W. Bush, 15.1. Fourth, Reagan, 14.1. Fifth, Trump, 13.7. So he's 5th out of 6. And last, of course,
Now,
is
what wa-
W. Bush,
what-
who was
What was-
underwater
what was the dates of that? What was the ending
throughout
date?
their presidency.
Now,
No.
do you
throughout the
suspect?
whole presidency?
Do you
Yeah.
suspect, as I suspect, that when Donald gets elected again, I would love for you to come back after the end of his 8th year and see where he ranks in those 6. I think you may see a change in that placement.
Probably go lower. Probably go
here,
lower.
Here comes the 64.
But look at W.
Greg.
Bush, minus 3.2, and he was a Republican last time I checked.
Well,
Greg, how many of those 6 presidents had a pandemic to deal with during their term?
well,
It
depends
doesn't
if
seem
we,
like it's affected the stock market.
Well, let me ask you a question. Now,
Oh,
do
it
we count-
did indeed, because the
Hadn't-
market was up
Last year.
over 40% in February from when Trump got elected,
Yeah.
and now it's up about 30%.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I say, the main thing is the market doesn't matter if it's
Well,
a
the key thing
Republican
is
or a
this, and-
Democrat.
and-
And when Trump says, "Oh gosh, it's going to be horrible,"
Well,
it's not.
There are, well, you don't know that for fact, and none of us do, but there's a lot of people that are afraid, and I've had numerous clients of mine say, "Joe, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Look, worst you can do in October is cash everything in, go to cash, and sit. And then let's say that Biden does get in. And let's say that my prediction is that the market will take a dip like crazy right after he gets elected. Well, that's the time to buy. So, but if you wait it out, that's okay, which leads me into a new subject, which is called insured investments. I've had this is one of my favorite subjects in the whole world. The S&P 500 has averaged roughly 10% a year for 90 years. The NASDAQ 100 is up 15% for the last 10 years per year.
And that's Republican or Democrat presidents.
Made no difference.
Right.
The key thing is there are dips where it goes down 25 and 30. And when we hit the Great Recession, it was down for quite a long period of time. So what happens when you're young and you're working in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you've got time to weather these storms where they go up and down. But let's say you're in your 60s or 70s or you're retired and you're counting on these investments for income. Well, let's say it's making 10, 15% a year and you're taking out 5%, you're doing good, you're going up. But all of a sudden the market tanks and you're taking out 5%. Well, now all of a sudden you're taking out your own money.
Absolutely.
So when you take out your own money, the big fear is, what if I run out of money? I can't contribute anymore because I'm not working. So what happens is an insurance company comes in and says, tell you what we'll do. And this is one of the greatest things about an insured investment. They'll say, we the insurance company will guarantee you a 5 or 6% income based on the high water mark, the highest your account gets, for the rest of your life. And each time it steps up, it can't go down from that number for the rest of your life, no matter what the market does. Now, my compliance people say you're supposed to know the claims paying ability of the insurance company, and Dan and I sitting here, if we deal with a company that's not an A-plus rated company, we make it really well known to it. And
You have to, Joe.
You have to make sure that your customer knows, even though I'm not really concerned because we have state guarantee funds, all kinds of stuff I'm not supposed to talk about, that are there as a partner. As a matter of fact, Dan's business, if we go back to 1992 when Hurricane Andrew hit, put about 12 companies out of business, but the state paid every claim, as long as they were in that, quote, admitted company.
You know, the problem with that, Joe, is this. It does take, in many cases, an exceptionally long time.
But that's better than not getting paid at all.
Yes, to get that claim resolved.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that it's not a great thing to have. It is, but you just can't expect it to work as quickly as the normal insurance industry does.
The key thing you want to deal with, and Dan and I are on the same page on this, is the best companies, the highest rated, because when things get bad, they're still there, they weather the storm, and they don't have these aggravations that get in the way. However, the object of insurance, and I'm watching this with people with 401ks. And Dan, I see this, and I know you've seen it. They have a statement, and what they do, they balance the investments based on their age. So I'm looking at one last week, a Florida retirement one, and it's averaged 2% for the last 5 years.
They barely kept up with inflation.
Well, what they did is the older the person gets, the more they want to put them into bonds. And bonds have been a disaster, absolute disaster, because interest rates are down to nothing. So they're only paying 1 or 2%.
Now let me ask a question of you two guys, because I don't know the answer. Of the entire population of America, how many people are actually invested in the market? 20%, 30%?
They say it's more like 60%.
60? Do you think that?
Oh, sure, because of 401ks
Yeah,
and
I'm
things
just
like
asking
that.
because I don't know.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I talk to a lot of people all the time and go, well, it doesn't bother me. I don't got anything in there anyway.
Well,
Your IRAs, your 401.
Look where we live, though. You see, we're not into a big industrial area. We're not where there's big corporations. We are little mom and pop operations like crazy, so we don't have. But if you go to work for the hospital, for the school system, anything our major employers, they have 401k programs. All big companies do. Now, not everybody works for the big company, and especially we're looking in Florida because we're not an industrial state. But you go to Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, I mean, just pick them out, and yeah. So this 401k, more and more people are getting educated about what goes into these 401ks. I constantly hear from people that they don't know what they have, and they show me what they've got. But most 401ks will have a dozen or 10 or 15 different investment options.
Well, I
that
know
you can
years
look at.
ago I would see things when I was in that market, defined benefit plans,
Yeah,
defined
yeah.
contribution plans.
Yeah.
Those things, by and large, are a thing of the past.
They still have them, but like you said, defined contribution plans, what they did was a 401k or any kind of retirement plan has to be offered to everybody within the community, everybody that works in the hospital or everybody that works in the school system. But they had some programs that they could take certain people out of and put them into a special group, but the government doesn't like that.
Well, you'd have to start a separate company.
Or you can have defined benefit plans. 457 is one of the numbers that allow you to take special employees and bring up a different category for them.
Like management. or something.
And that's unfortunately what happens. It's usually only for that. So the government isn't too hot on these things. And why we're seeing less and less of them all the time, they're making it more and more difficult for
The oversights
for
tougher.
yeah, exactly. 340-1590, 340-1590, and we got our producers, our owner's husband here flipping around looking to help. Oh, we actually have a caller. Hey, Russ, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Yeah, I don't have the internet or television, so I don't know for sure, but the rumor is with Biden's hands-on approach towards women, he picked the prettiest of the available.
Well, listen,
Nice.
you got to give him credit for that. Kamala's
Didn't
not.
he say she was sniffable or something like that?
Is sniffable. Is that the one he liked her hair?
No comment.
I don't. Yeah, the rumor is he's kind of handsy and sniffing hair and stuff.
Hey, listen.
Are you
I
saying
find
he
it odd he
hand-
picked the
I
You're
will-
not saying he handpicked her.
Hey, listen. I will give Kamala this.
Willie Brown's
she's
online,
She's a
too.
very attractive woman, and she's got a gorgeous smile. Hey, that and 50 cents gets you a third of a cup of
Well,
coffee.
now, how about this? And I thought about this, all right? You hear a lot of people on the left sometimes who say how difficult it is for certain minorities to get ahead.
Right.
She is the epitome of an American success story to me. She
Absolutely.
comes from a family where her dad was Jamaican and her mom is from India.
Right.
They both had successful careers, and
Yeah.
she is a product of that, and she has done well. So, to say that our country holds those people down, I don't necessarily buy into that.
Well,
Well, it's the only country where you can say people hold you down without someone actually holding you down.
you know what? You got a
They
big.
say that in any other country, they would be held down.
Well,
Yeah.
you got a point there, Russ. The key thing is this: when I, we have this thing going on with, I'm a African American. Well, Dan is a Russian American. Joe Martek's a Mutt American. Greg Fasula is an Italian American.
So am I.
You don't look Italian. You look.
Northern Italian, pal.
Oh, you're a German, a German pass through
from
town.
Genoa.
But Genoa.
And as Steve adores, we will take care of your body.
But it's and Dan has a black brother-in-law who's a retired military Army Ranger, big boy. I'm telling you, put it mildly. But if you call him an African American, he is ticked off
He's
because
upset.
he's an American.
That's right.
And that's where I kind of why all of a sudden. And Greg, I don't know. I'm having a hard time with this. It seemed like everything was doing pretty well until all of a sudden it became a big issue again.
That's true, and
That
I wonder
sells a
why.
lot of commercials.
Well,
It's because there's so much division, and that's why we need. I think there was a poll that came out that showed 80% of Americans, they want change, and I think that.
Well, there's another poll that says 81% of all the blacks want to keep the police force like it is.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, here's what happened.
You're talking about the far left there.
So what
that, that
But
do not.
change is a vague concept. We went through the
Every
hope and
president-
change.
It's
went
a
through hope
vague
and
concept,
change.
but I think my thoughts are this coming election, you're going to see change.
Well, what kind of change do you think you'll have?
You're going to see
Very
you're going to
little.
see change top to bottom.
Like, give me an example.
Presidency, probably Senate, and
Well, okay.
definitely House.
How does that help the consumer, the American public? Because we have had changes in administrations regularly, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. We've had Democrats control both houses. We've had Republicans control both. And we are into this god-awful time right now where we have an ethnic problem where all of a sudden...
Well, we need progress. We need progress on a lot of fronts.
Wait a minute. We had a black president. We got Willie Gary down here, one of the wealthiest attorneys in the area, who was a sharecropper, he's become a success. Here's Kamala, who's got 2 different ethnic groups in her. Joe Martek's 2% Ashkenazi.
Look how well you've done.
All I'm trying to say is,
well, here's what I think.
You can point out this person here and there, and that doesn't mean society as a whole.
Do you not feel that what they do is they divide us socially, ethnically, sexual orientation-wise, because they want to pit us against each other instead of calling us all Americans? We're all hyphenated Americans. And I reject
that's
that.
True.
I reject that.
There's a good reason why they do that.
Why?
Because they don't do a damn thing in D.C. And I don't care if they all get voted out and you get a whole new crop in.
Well,
they're still not going to do it.
That's what I was saying to Greg. Every time we have a change, and they all say change. Every president comes up, they're going to change. And guess what happens? From a political standpoint, here, let's go back to this.
If you really want change, you have to have term limits. You have to have campaign financing, and they just won't do that.
How is that going to change the crime rate in poor black neighborhoods?
Well, the term limits and
everything got silent.
The term
Everything
limits,
got silent.
Term limits itself won't
If you look
at
pure statistics, the black community creates more crime per capita than any other group.
Now,
why is
it's
that?
Because of poverty.
Of course, it's because
but I
of
gotta
poverty.
jump in here because
what?
I'm going to tell you who I can find at fault. If I lived in a community that had terrible crime rate,
Right.
and I did nothing,
Right.
except I'm in fear that they're going to take a vengeance on me, then I'm perpetuating that. Men and women have integrity have to stand up and say, not in my part of town.
Well,
and I think what happens
Well, you know
is,
what happens? That's why people move to suburbs, why they get, and bottom line is, now, today, Greg, next door neighbors, $500,000 house, black, white, pink, green, you don't see any color. Now, if you go into a bad neighborhood, I'm from Detroit. If you went into the working class neighborhoods, they were all white. They were dangerous as all get out. This was not, poor people.
Right.
White, pink, green, I don't care what color. This is where crime. How is that going to be changed? That's through education. How is that going to change? It hasn't worked so far.
There has to be an emphasis on not just college, but on good technical training to teach people job skills. It costs you and me as taxpayers, Joe, more money to put that person in prison and keep them in prison than it does to teach them.
They have to invest in those communities to do those things.
Okay, now here comes. Let me ask you this:
that education.
Every administration so far has said they're going to do that. Who has done it? Nobody. I mean, we buy more computers, we pay teachers. But does that actually help that community? What are we? See, well, I don't know the answer, and Joe, I really don't.
Let me give you a good example. Here in Fort Pierce, we do struggle with good gainful employment. But lo and behold, what's happening? They're bringing in some major marine industries into Fort Pierce. And guess what the college is doing? They're teaching a class on Yamaha engine repair to help you get certified as a Yamaha technician.
That's all good things.
And that first class was packed.
And that's
doing
good. Doing the job that we're supposed to do. I love that. That's what we're supposed to do.
What I'm trying to say is I would like to see somebody grab the bull by the horns and actually not just have rhetoric, but have an absolute plan, like Dan is saying and Greg, that how do we solve this problem rather than we make it worse with all the stuff that's going on right today? It's worse than it was 10 years ago.
I know it's going to sound bad, but if I was a judge and you came before me and you had done something wrong, I would like to have an agreement with a technical school to say, here's your choices, young man.
Yeah.
Off to prison you go, or you take that technical class and you come out of that as a trained whatever.
Yeah.
I need to have that person not be desperate, because desperate people do desperate
There
things.
you go. It's
I
just
need
that's
them
it's
to
that's
be trained.
it's
They
that
have
simple.
to have a skill.
The fact that, I was a cub reporter during the 65 Watts riots.
You look like a cub, yes.
Yeah. And I could tell you, not much has changed.
No.
And, of course, we were in the 92 riots as well, Rodney King riots. And, again, in Watts, not much has changed.
No.
You had the lone supermarket was burned out
Yeah.
in 65 and was not replaced until 1994.
Now let me
The
ask
schools there are still in
Hey,
failure.
Let me ask you
Russ,
this.
are you still there?
Yep.
No.
Gone.
Let me
Well,
ask
you know what?
this.
Russ opened up the can of worms.
Yeah, he did. He did.
If you are, let's say, and I can only relate through my brother-in-law, who I've told you, he's a black American, all right? So I can only relate through him, but I truly believe that if you are a minority, there are opportunities for you, but you must search them out. I believe our society wants you to succeed. I believe our society has provided opportunity for you to
Well,
succeed.
that's what America's
but
all about.
But you must seek it out. They're not going to knock on your door and say, here's opportunity, take it.
Every
You must-
ethnic group that came here, the Italians, the Poles, the Russians, the Germans, pick them all. Why did they come to America? Because we were the land of opportunity, and it still is. However,
Absolutely.
you had to work for it.
Yes.
You had to work for it. Greg, I don't know what your family is, but boy, when the immigrants came over, remember Paul Harvey? This is the rest of the story.
Sure.
He said, you want to make a great investment? Back any immigrant in any business, because they work 8 to faint, they make it happen, they move into the building, they do whatever it takes to make it happen. The work ethic.
No doubt about that.
Well, what's happened to that?
My grandfather, he was 8 years old when he came over from Italy, and he became a sheriff of a county in Ohio. So
That's
yeah,
impressive.
it was very
That's
hard working. He didn't even speak English. When
I
he
had
came
a
here.
client of mine, a Russian immigrant. He came over, worked in the factories in New Jersey. Everybody would get laid off except him. He showed up every day, worked every day, never complained, did his work, and did the best job of anybody. And he sponsored over 100 people to move into America from Macedonia, is where he technically was from, and every one of them paid him back. Every one. The whole concept is that was how America was established, and now all of a sudden we've fallen apart on that totally.
Well, that's discipline. A lot of that's discipline.
It is discipline.
You look at the, I know the USC people always used to laugh at UCLA, and all of, especially the Asian students at UCLA. But you look at those GPAs, and you look at the way those kids work.
Yeah.
And you understand. There's a example here. There was a Chinese restaurant, and there were 2 kids that were basically busing. Well, they were both young Floridian kids. They both were, the dual enrolled, and very, very sharp kids. They were honors kids in college. So those kids had discipline.
Came from home. This is what you will do, because we came over here, we're working 8 to faint, and the parents did 7. There was no such thing as days off. You worked. So the kids are expected to work. Now, Dan, you and I were raised that way. There was no such thing as allowance.
No, it's a privilege to live there and eat.
Yeah. Hey, the only reason I had you was so you could work on the milk truck.
My allowance is an LA Times paper route.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, it taught you a work experience.
Well, sure it did. Yeah.
Let me suggest something here. The schools are teaching a set curriculum now, and they're not teaching about what's out there as far as life.
No.
If I was the administrator of a school district, I'd be having people like Greg, Dan, and you coming into the schools and talking to the students about what you do, how you got there.
Well, you can't do that though, Alan,
no,
because
yeah, you
you're
can.
conservative. Your liberals won't allow us in.
I've been in on career days, and
I'm kidding.
I've talked to students. Do you know what I tell my children? Well, they're all adults now. Well, they're still my children. But when they were little, I would tell them, you know what? Be glad you live in a country with so many lazy-ass people. I hate, pardon my language. Pardon my language.
Think about the
and
logic.
then I would tell them.
I get you.
I would tell them, because I have taught you to show up early. I have taught you to give your employer a full day. And you're a hero to him. If you show up on time and do your job and he makes a little money on you, you're a hero. And it shouldn't be that way. That should be normal.
Yeah.
That should be the normal expectation of everybody, but not every child is taught that.
And another problem is, once they've gone down the wrong track, once they've done it, they have a criminal record, they've done some crime, they've made a mistake. Even if they become rehabilitated, they've changed their lives.
It's harder.
Good luck getting a job.
Well,
it's
I'm going
very
to tell
difficult.
you, because I have worked with Orange Blossom Ministries in certain prisons. One of the keys is this.
Is that when you were in prison?
Yeah, visiting.
visiting. Oh,
So
okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
What they emphasize and stress is, when you get out, you're going to find it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
All right. We suggest you try to get a trade, because in the trades, it's not quite so micromanaged. If you're an excellent plumber or carpenter, they probably will still hire you if you spend a little time. But if you want to work in some white-collar industry, that's going to be just about impossible.
Yeah.
So the system, when you have a prisoner in prison, they should get them ready.
Yeah.
Not to come out and be a better thief or a better drug dealer. They need to get them to come out to actually have a profession and a trade ready to go.
On our IRSC show, we had the VP of Piper Aircraft.
Yeah.
And he was talking about 75% of our workforce are boomers.
Are what?
Boomers.
Age,
Baby
really.
boomer.
We're getting old.
So, he said, this is why we have all of these programs to bring youngsters in and learn this business, because these folks are not going to be around all that much longer.
They do have that internship there at Piper.
You betcha.
Yeah.
You bet they do.
The whole concept that happens, it's how do you, I go back to Lyndon Johnson, and I think this is Joe Martek's opinion now. He had the Great Society, which means let's just give people money for not working. Let's give people money to have babies. And all of a sudden we created a society of hands out, getting money for not working, and this became a way of life. We had a caller a few weeks ago, Greg, a white guy from Kentucky, who said he went back and visited the principal of the high school in his hometown in eastern Kentucky, which is coal mining area, and he said if you talk to every 10, 11-year-old kid, what was their goal? Well, their goal was to get on welfare, buy a truck.
Mailbox money.
I mean, honestly, that was the goal, because that's how everybody was living. That was the norm. That was what's expected. So it's so hard for these kids, when you're raised that way, to make this transition. How do you cure that? Which politician has cured it? None.
But as a member of society, I just reject that, because
I know, but
I get nothing. So here, and I told you before, and it took me a long time to come to this decision because I'm pretty conservative. But I believe, and hold on to your hat, I believe that the government should give you a job. Because what does the government get today for the money they give you? They don't even get a thank you. They get nothing. The government should say, your check is requirement for you to show up right here. If you tell me you cannot show up because you don't have transportation, the bus is going to pick you up. Our bus is going to pick you up. If you tell me, well, my kids need to have a place to stay, no problem. We're going to provide that. Now, why do we do all that? Because what you just said, Joe, we want the child of that family to know that their parents go to work every day, so
Yep.
work becomes the expectation
It's
in
the
their
next.
mind.
It's the next
It's
generation.
the next generation. I won't save the current generation, but I
No.
can sure save the next generation.
You know, it was interesting when I was in college, and then after
You can remember back that far?
Yeah, well, every once
It's
in a
kind of
while.
smoky and fuzzy.
There was this little tiny Catholic school, and it was kind of like an oasis in Watts, and it started by a former gang member who was a Jesuit priest.
Of course.
And
gang.
so anyway, all of a sudden, Verbum Dei High School is the name, and look it up. They've had more than 10 Rhodes Scholars come out of that little Catholic school, and you think, okay, but what's the deal there? And you saw it with the athletes, discipline.
Yes.
Greg, you know this. Were you raised in Catholic schools?
No.
I was. I went to all. He and I have this Jesuit background. When I went to high school, Jesuit high school, there was no ADDs, no Ds, no ADHDs, nothing. You will learn. You will do 2.5 hours of homework every day. We tell your parents, lock you in a room, don't let you out, and then check the homework.
Yeah, what's the deal with no homework now?
Yeah.
What's that?
I mean,
Come
all
on.
it amounted to was this. They said, listen, you are coming to this school. Your parents are paying a fortune. You will succeed, period.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and here comes back to we're talking about the Chinese restaurant with the kids. They're working. They understand the work ethic. Everything was based on discipline and work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
We're missing that. How do you cure that?
Well, here's what I would say, Joe. I have always taught my children and my grandchildren that school is your job.
That's your job.
It's your
That's
job.
Right. That's right.
And then I can say, as they get older, well, look, your job is paying dividends because you're a good student. I get cheaper insurance.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's certain things that I can directly attribute to your new job. And if you get the child to understand that work and job is the same thing as school, and you're supposed to exceed in that, when you actually do work, you will be a success, I guarantee you.
How about mandatory military
That was a good thing. That was a good
I
good
think
thing.
that's a good
or AmeriCorps?
Yeah.
It's all
If you don't want to go in the military,
That was a good
serve
thing.
2 years in AmeriCorps.
Some kind of
and help
service
the
to your
Well, look
community.
what
1 year
happened.
after high
I'm
school
all for that.
graduation. I think that'd be great.
In Israel,
I
it's still
do
right.
too. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's an
it's-
absolute.
Yeah, it's compulsory in
Compul-
Israel.
But don't forget now to get in college, Joe, when
and-
they look at it, they look at your community service.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, so like when my son was in high school, he worked in the Red Cross and did different things because when you send your application in, the colleges now want to know, well, what are you doing besides going to school?
You bet.
Med school is tough. I mean, the kids want to get into med school. You can be a 4-point student, and that's not good
You're on
enough.
the
all
low
by-
end.
Yeah.
You're on the low end.
Yeah.
You
Anyway,
know, Dan brought up a point of the government providing a job for people. Well, you know, that goes a long way because of the fact if people are working, they are paying taxes
of course they are.
probably.
Of course.
And instead of spending on these gimme programs, I mean, we're not talking about people that have serious
No,
problems
of course not.
that really
No.
need help, disability, things like
Right,
that.
right.
We're talking about people who are sitting at home, watching movies during the day and doing nothing, and getting a check. And
Let me finish this
FD
one part
Didn't
as we're going.
FDR do something similar to that?
Yes.
When
Yeah, he
after,
did.
after World War II?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
The key thing that to me, when I look at what's happening with our society, and none of our politicians are addressing the root problem. It's called education. It's not education. It's back to Dan. How do you get these kids to understand that you have to work to succeed?
There's no dishonorable labor, Joe.
No
There's
such
none.
thing. No.
Everything must be done by someone.
Yeah.
Problem is, in many cases, people say, that job is beneath me. No. Everything must be done. And I think I've told the story before. We had a neighbor once who owned one of those septic tank cleaning companies.
Yeah.
They went on vacation. They had my dad take over for them for the summer. And well, you know who got to be the helper? I got to be the helper. And I learned real quickly
Polish luau.
that no matter what my dad, no matter what my father charged someone to clean up their place, they never said, "Oh no, that's too much money." They all said, "How fast can you get to it, because we need it done?" So I learned real quick that some of these jobs that you look at, you don't have a clue what kind of money they make.
No.
What about the role of the parent? My parent, your parent, everybody's parent in this room, we didn't do our schooling. We didn't go to work on time. We heard about it.
Heard about it.
Oh, more than that.
With more than there
You
wa-
felt it too.
Yeah.
Plus the parent needs to lead by example too. I mean, if you're out there working hard and showing the child that you're making a living and
Okay. How do politicians address this, Greg? Because nobody does. Nobody. Now listen. In defense of Trump, he had the lowest unemployment rate in the black community and the Asian community and the Hispanic community for over 50 years. But that doesn't cure the problem. Yeah,
No.
you have more people working. That means we got a few extra people not out committing crimes. That's about it. But the bottom line is we still have that hardcore, no matter what, you ain't going to make them work.
That I can tell you from from personal experience. I grew up in a very poor community. Most all my friends were from very poor families. Many, not all, but many of my friends went into illegal activities. They saw that as a quick way to make money.
Of course.
They didn't realize the long-term consequences, and many of them became long-term, probably spent more time in jail than they did out of jail, all right? Then I had a large percentage of my friends who went right into the trades. Bricklayers, sheetrockers, all kinds
Yeah,
of different.
right.
All of them succeeded because they worked hard. Yeah, they started out as grunt workers for the company, but in a year or two they were making very good money until they retired. They continued to do that.
You know, what's the old rule? Start at the top and work your way down? No. You start at the bottom and work your way up. And I get all of this conflicting stuff from politicians where it's not fair that people go to work at McDonald's and stuff and make minimum wage. Well, wait a minute. They have no skills, no nothing. You have to start someplace.
a lot of young people don't want to do that.
The manager or the assistant manager at McDonald's does not make minimum wage.
No.
And he probably started out as a burger flipper.
Key is this. In life, and this is where it just seems to me that everybody has got their hand out saying, hey, I'm worth $15-20 an hour. What do you know? I know nothing, but that's what I'm worth. I shouldn't get less than that under any circumstances, because that's what it costs me.
Well, I've had people tell me I'm not getting out of bed for under X dollars an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, I had that
Have you not-
exactly at IRSC. A young guy came up to me and said, if I don't make $50,000, I'm not going to work for you. And I said, do you know how many years in television news that it took me to get to $50,000 a year?
Yes.
You know,
Decade.
it's-
And he just said, not me, man. I'll go on unemployment.
Yeah.
Well,
the key.
and then he regrets and begrudges society that he doesn't have opportunity when he's older.
Hey, one of my favorite experiences, we had a pretty big company at one time, 180 people on payroll, so we had an accounting department. There was 3 people in the accounting department. And the one guy, things didn't balance. That's
not a good thing.
And he would make them balance because he'd just fudge a little bit, so he got caught. He said, well, if you paid me more money, I'd do a better job. Well, that was his last. That was his last
was
day.
not a good thing
That
to
was his
say.
last day on the job. 340-1590, 340-1590. Russ, thanks for calling in. You got us moving off the subject, which we loved, Russ. Thank you so much for doing it.
But Joe, what I got out of today's discussion was I still believe there's plenty of opportunity for young people. They just have to be smart enough to pick where they're going to go and see the program through. Don't quit halfway when it gets tough.
Well, what's the old thing? Make a plan, and then implement it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know,
What's
that's all.
the saying? Seize the moment. Well, America has given us that moment.
We have opportunities in this country that almost no country on earth has.
And we're spoiled. That's the
and
problem.
we
We
are
are spoiled,
We are spoiled rotten.
and we've been spoiled rotten since probably 60s, 1960s.
Well, it probably is.
And
Back in the 50s and the 40s, 30s, when everybody worked like crazy, and after the Second World War, it was all good. And then all of a sudden, late 60s, 70s started to come, and we started running into a problem. 340-1590, 340-1590. We got
Gotta be
time for
quick.
this call? Okay, caller. Hey, Tom, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Hey, Joe, I just had to throw a little comment in. I've been with my company 28 years now, and there's a new millennial kid. He's been there 4 years. He came at my office a couple weeks ago. He says, you know what? I should be making $100,000 a year. This is ridiculous. And I said, well, how much money should I make if I've been here 28 years? I don't know. These younger people, they just got their hands out.
So evidently he didn't know the right answer to that one, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know, and you hit it, Tom, and that's what we're talking about. And you know, it's not these kids' fault, it's how they're raised, because you were probably raised like we were, because we're not so young, where hey, I wasn't afraid of the police. I was afraid of my old man. I did not do anything wrong because of that. So where is that today? Anyway,
yeah,
Tom.
well, these millennials, they're boomers' kids.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so that should tell you something.
But if you're worth $100,000, you better be able to show your employer, I'm making you $500,000.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Greg, I guess we're winding down. Is that what you're saying? Until next week, listen, you call the radio show anytime you want. Leave your name and number. We'll call you back, 340-1590. We got Greg Fasula, attorney, Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, Joe Martek, financial advisor, Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, and Mike Paulus, mortgage broker. And until next week, I think we're done. What do you think, Chief?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. We need 10 seconds of wisdom from an attorney.
Bye-bye, everybody.
There it is.
That's close.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.
WPSL Port St. Lucie.